This video is about executing SQL queries from Python. Before we get to that point, though, there are two things I'd like to remind you. First, the query you see here refers to the predicted outputs table, not the database carrying the same name. Second, our goal is to execute an SQL statement from Python successfully. More precisely, it will be this select statement which is applied to the predicted outputs table. And because it currently does not contain any data, it is normal to expect an empty output. Having said that, let's go back to Python and run the same select statement. To do this, we need to apply the execute method to the newly created cursor object. As an argument, we must place a string containing the query we'd like to run in our database. Note that the relevant code has to be in SQL and be surrounded by parentheses. So, now we can use the select statement from Workbench, written on one line. It stands for select all cells from the predicted outputs table. After we run this cell, we obtain 0, which means there's currently no data stored in this table. Yes, it's true that, contrary to what we saw in Workbench, the column names were not displayed here. But that's just the way in which Jupyter tells us predicted outputs contains no information. To wrap up this video, I'd like to mention that Python variables can be used as arguments of the execute method as well. For instance, you could assign the same string value to a variable called query, and then pass query as an argument of the execute method. However, this option is prone to mistakes, which you may stumble upon when you start writing more complicated code, or if the string contains a delete statement. The risk is that you may remove a significant amount of information from your database inadvertently. Of course, this doesn't mean that using a variable is completely wrong. For instance, in the next few lectures, we will store a string containing an insert statement in a variable. We will use this as an argument of the execute method. In that case, this trick will turn out to be extremely useful. Nevertheless, please remember that this tool must be applied with care. Whenever possible, use the entire SQL query as a single string, and then place it between the parentheses of the execute method. All right, you learned a very important skill in this lecture. We are finally ready to move the information stored in the DF New Observations data frame from Python to SQL. Thank you for watching.